Welcome back to Small the Geek Odyssey. You're
embarrassing me again.
As you guys know, last video did very well on around 2k views, exactly by this point, I believe. I think it's 2k and 75 as of the last time of checking. 37 likes. Thank you guys so much. We've also gone from 426 to 435 subscribers in that time, so thank you guys very much. Let's try to get to 450 subscribers by summer. That is the aim. The Bat Family one is what we're going to go off today, and we're going to do the Superman family. Now, I don't know as much about the Superman family as I do the Bat Family because, well, I love the Bat Family. Like, Batman's my favorite fictional character of all time, and without him, I wouldn't be here. We've said this before. So, the Superman family, I know a bit about. You know, I'm not saying I know nothing about, but it's not going to be like as detailed. Now, the categories are still the same. You've got S tier all the way down to F tier. But in this category, no one's going to be S tier. I know everyone's going to be like, oh, but what about Superman? What about Superman? We'll get on to him later, and I'll explain why he's not in S tier. But first, let's start off with Mama Kent and Papa Kent. To be honest, I like it when they are alive, you know, and you don't see much of them in media. Most of them, they're either killed off or just like, oh, they're there, but you don't really see them. But when I think of them, I think of the Justice League Unlimited show. And I remember them taking in for a Christmas Martian Manhunt. And then you also know, like, if you watch the Wayne Family Adventures, they appear in that a little. And that's the way I like them, like in those things. So, you know, I'm going to give them A. They're positive people, you know, like they're positive role models. I'm going to give them, for now, both an A. Next up, we have Supergirl. Supergirl. I don't know why I'm singing her name like that. Now, just to clarify, this isn't Power Girl we're talking about. She comes later. We're talking about Supergirl in DC Comics. Now, I think I was first introduced to Power Girl via an animated series of some sort, a cartoon. So I am not too sure, but Kara is the character of Supergirl, and I do remember bits of her. I don't like it when they try to tell us she's better than Superman, you know, without showing us. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she has more potential. Show us. And now I like the idea of she has more power than Superman. Like she technically is more powerful because she was in space longer and went through the sun more. I kind of dig that if it's done right. Otherwise, I am not too sure on how I feel about it. But I like her as a character, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this. I'm just saying I hate it when they tell us that someone's better without showing us, you know? And I like the idea of unlike Superman who was raised here, she has to adapt to Earth because she grew up on Krypton. She grew up there. She's not a child or a baby coming here. She's a young adult, teenager when she arrives. And she has all this power in a world she knows nothing about, having to adapt. I like that storyline. See, there's something about it. I want to give her a C, but then I think I'm going to give her a B because I think I've never seen anything like bad about the character. And I think I'm getting pulled by nostalgia. But then if I compare it to who I put in the B tier for the Batman tier list, does she compare to them? For now, put her in B tier. Since I mentioned her just a few seconds ago, how about we talk about Power Girl, who I don't know too much about. Like, I was introduced to her first. I was introduced to her as a clone of Supergirl. So being told that she's not a clone was actually a bit of a shock. I thought she came before Superboy and was the first clone of Supergirl, and then Superboy came later, because that's how I was introduced to them. Because she's also Kara Zor-El, but she's from an alternative universe. Now, lots of people would put her higher because of her costume choice, let's say. But because I don't know too much about Supergirl, they're practically the same character. So since I put Supergirl in B, you'd think I'd put her in B. But because I'm undecided on the both, I'm just going to put her in C for now. So like, just to make it up. I know that seems harsh, but you can't blame me too much here with this one. Crypto, the super dog. I don't even know if that's his theme tune, but come on, best doggo, we need to see more of him. A tier. Once I've done the family tier list or like, you know, the tier list like the Bat Family, Super Family, Green Lanterns and all this, once I've completed all of them, I'll then merge those tier lists together so you can see where they rank similar to each other. But Crypto is A tier. Lois Lane, you know what, I'm going to put Lois Lane B tier. My reasoning is because I don't think she's as good as Selena Kyle, Catwoman. I know she's a good character, I just don't remember much. I only remember her from the movies where, to be honest, she's not as strong as I know she could be, you know? In the animated series, she's always been great in those, but I never remember too much of her. So just for that reason, B tier, but she could probably rise up to A tier some point soon. Next up, we have Steel. Steel, I think, is a C tier. Now, I actually like him. I want to put him in B tier, but I've barely seen him and don't know too much about him. And when I think about who I put in which tier for the Batman thing, I've got to say C tier. Mind you, I can't remember exactly what I put it, who I put in the Batman tier, so this might just be a completely terrible list, but this is just based off gut feeling and based off the fact I don't know too much about them. But there are two characters I'm putting instantly in E tier, and that are two new introductions because I know nothing about them, and the F's for I hate them, and I don't hate them because I know nothing about them, and that is, I think it's Othora and Othora. Sorry if I mispronounced that, please let me know in the comment section below. But they've recently introduced the refugees from descendants of Krypton, and I'm pretty sure they've just been fostered or adopted by the Kent family. So I'm not too sure there on anything of them, so I've got to put them in E tier. Now we get to, like, let's be honest, the three main people. Superboy / Superman, and Superman. Now, why am I saying it like that? Superboy for me is Connor Kent. And I do know a bit about him from the comics, and I quite like the idea of being a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor. I think the problem is, from every version I've seen, he's just been a lot weaker version of Superman who's more grumpy. I think it would have been cool to have him have the powers of OG Superman. What does it mean by OG Superman is, like, he can't fly, but he can jump over a building in a sleep pulley. He has super strength and speed, but not on the level of Superman. So in, like, physical sense, he's weaker. Maybe not all, but maybe just some of his other powers, you know, the senses, laser vision, freeze breath, super breath, things like that. Maybe just some of those, I'm not sure which, like, we can all debate that. But then have the intellect of Lex Luthor or similar, you know? So maybe not as smart as Lex Luthor, but still smart. Because then you can have a weaker version of Superman, but an intelligent version of Superman. And I think seeing someone with a lot higher intellect use Superman's powers that are weaker, like to overset that weakness, is a really cool idea. If it was that version, the version I envision in my head, that would be A going on to potentially S tier, but it would be A tier. But then you got the Superboy from the Young Justice, which looked cool, but I think I'd put him like B tier, B, A tier, but I'd put him B tier because I'm thinking, could I compare them? Could I compare Superboy to Red Hood and Nightwing? No. And I don't remember who I put in B tier for Batman, but I know it's probably like the likes of Tim Drake. I'm pretty sure I put him in B tier. And I like him just as much as Tim Drake. So B tier makes sense for Connor. Then you've got Superboy / Superman. This is John Kent, Superman and Lois's son in the comics. I remember when he was still a child, and now all of a sudden in the comics he's like a teenager. He's like what Connor was. So I'm assuming that's what Damian will be, but I haven't seen Damian like that yet, which is what's baffling me. Is in comics, no one ages apart from one person. When the comics decide it's time for them to move on, will just suddenly jump up in age, and so that baffles me. And I don't know all of his stories. I know he went through a lot. Like, I've heard stuff about him and Nightwing and his Nightwing being there. I've heard about Warworld, but I haven't seen that. But then also pretty sure he's a queer character. Him and someone else. I know Tim Drake had his love interest Bernard, and then Superboy had someone, and wasn't it briefly like both of them? Which I like that aspect. I did like that thing, but I don't know too much about that. I want to say higher, right? But I'm probably having to go with C, just because I generally have seen only little bits and little clips. But it's one of those where I know, oh, I would like him. He'd go to B, A tier if I read more. So I do need to read more and watch more with him in If you've got any stories you recommend, please let me know. So last off, we obviously have the big dog Superman. And let's be honest here, he's probably the easiest A tier in this list. I would have him essentially roundabout where I put Nightwing and Red Hood. Like he would bounce between before Nightwing, middle of Nightwing, and after Red Hood, like bounce between those. Now most people will be like, why not S tier? Why not S tier? Remember, as I said last time, S tier is solely for the best, like not just the best, but those who had the biggest impact on me. These aren't just which characters are cool. You could have a character who I like a lot and everything about them is amazing, but them not being S tier because there's no personal meaning to me. Superman isn't that. He's a very cool character. Actually, I used to hate Superman at one point, but that's for another video. But I've grown to respect him more and I like that humanity side of him despite all that power. But I don't have an emotional connection to him. There was no emotional connection. So A tier. So to recap, we've got in A tier, we've got Superman at the top. Then we have Crypto, followed by Mama Kent and Papa Kent, both all in A tier. In B tier, we have Superboy and Supergirl and Lois Lane, probably in that order, but those three can go anyway. No, actually it'd be Superboy and Lois Lane could go either way. Supergirl at the end. Then in the tier below, you've got Superboy, but John Kent, Power Girl, and you've got Steel. No one's in D tier, and in E tier, because I know literally nothing about them, I only found out about them whilst making this video, is Uthara and Usulra. I'm sorry, I'm completely butchering that, I know. That's my Superman tier list. Remember to share this video with your friends if you did enjoy, and check out other past videos. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, please enjoy. Peace out, banana heads.